Hey, James.
Hey, good to see you, man. Again.
Woo. Give me O.
Yeah, it's funny. After we talked last week, I was like, "Oh, geez, I get to talk to you again! Yay! I love this."
How sweet! Fresh meat!
First of all, we kind of touched a little bit on you're kind of playing heroes a little bit in kind of genre specific movies. What is it about Finn? What did you like about Finn? This seems like such a great role that I don't think you would have necessarily been cast in general.
Yeah, I think maybe 10 years ago, 5 years ago, 3 years ago, I wouldn't have been cast as Finn because for a myriad of reasons, one of which being, and probably the main reason being, that you don't typically think of characters like these as being anything but white men.
Yeah.
So the fact that we exist as more than just the kind of background or supporting characters is something that I was happy to get to like sort of portray in this movie. And then apart from that, sort of I love the idea of Finn being like I play a lot of nice guy, sweet guy characters,
Hmm.
with the exception of Promising Young Woman, where I play an absolute sleazebag.
Oh, you were a dick in that. Oh my god, I hated you in that movie.
A lot of people did. My DM certainly let me know that.
Oh my
Um,
god.
I was like, whoa, this is a
It's
movie.
just a movie, guys. It's
It's a
just a
movie,
movie.
you guys. But with Finn, sort of the energy, or sort of the idea of a nice guy who is confronting what it means to be nice,
Hmm.
and a person who is a reluctant leader and hero, but kind of like facing all these things, and like what is the sort of balance between being in charge and being nice, or being accommodating and being authoritative, or an authority.
Yeah.
uh, and so I found that like an interesting dynamic to kind of like explore with this, and I think that on the page it's very much a study of that.
Well, let's be realistic here. On the page, you have this amazing group. You have these very wild characters all gathered together, driving each other crazy. This was shot before pre-COVID, right? This was shot. I mean, that
We
it's
finished this
really
movie
perfect.
right before everything shut down, so like sort of the parallels are kind of crazy, of
They're
everybody being,
shocking.
it's shocking, really. A movie about everybody being like sequestered and like locked in on this thing with this mysterious, unknown force outside that is also could be within, and somebody might be it, and somebody might not, and like kind of being afraid of it, and like trying to figure out as a community what to do about it. It's interesting.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, that must be strange to get to have this film kind of coming out now, and especially what we're dealing with. It's getting theatrical, I believe,
Yeah,
right? So
June 25th
that's
theaters.
fantastic. So, I mean, what have you learned from the past few months?
uh, I think you know what, that's a good question, because I feel like the past 16 months, the premise of the movie is that we don't know who, if there is, or who or what this creature is,
Yeah.
and who among us might be that person. And I think the past 16 months, it has been that a little bit where everybody has like a fear of each other, because like, are you carrying this thing that I'm deathly afraid of, and that is
Mm.
like wreaking havoc on our society? So like sort of a study of that, and then like thinking about what that this movie does with that, and like what emotional fears, how we sort of interact with each other with this like looming fear of what that, because we don't know what the other person has done, or is
Yeah.
coming from, or who they fully, like not knowing who each other fully is, and how much do we trust each other, is like an interesting sort of thing, because like you have to have trust in order to have a society, right? In
Yeah.
any sort of like size of it, be it in a relationship of two people, a family of five people, a town of 300 people or a world of 7 billion people, you know? So like, sort of like, what are the interactions and what are the things that we look for and fear in each other? And like, how do we overcome them, or what do we listen to? What do we ignore? Is sort of like an interesting thing that I think we do in this movie, but like, I've had 16 months after we wrapped it to kind of think more on that, and I think we really touch on that in this movie.
Yeah, well, it's you know, as an audience member watching it, you're like, oh my god. Oh my god! I mean, look, this is nothing new. We've seen this in genre from who knows how long. The Thing, The Mist. I could go on and on and on and on. Why do you think genre lends itself so well to kind of putting a mirror on society?
I think genre lends itself to that sort of like societal mirror, in that, you know, you're able to heighten certain aspects. Like in this one, the intrigue, you know, having there be an actual monster really personifies, or, you know, if there is a monster, if there isn't a monster, like having like this solidified thing to fear, you know, like with it, or like The Thing, these things, like it is it's no longer, it's a tangible, you know, a tangible thing that you can put all these sort of ideas on. So like genre lets you like directly address these notions that maybe are an undercurrent in more traditional films. You know, that's a sublayer, but this one is an overlay, which I think is really cool about genre. You know, and
Now, are you a horror fan in general? Are you because you do some great comedy, man. You're just so funny, but you obviously you're good at this too. Are you a fan of this?
I am. I'm very much a fan. So I was like really excited to get to be in. I'm a fan of genre across the board. Truly,
Perfect.
like Skyfall, they're right back there. I love a Bond movie. You know.
Well, what about? Well, I gotta ask the Boogans. Have you seen the Boogans?
I don't know the Boogans. I gotta admit, but I do love horror.
You gotta watch the Boogans. Well, we have time for one more question. You're awesome, dude. I love talking to you. Where, you know, with this, what do you hope people get out of this movie? I mean, obviously, Josh has a way of creating tension and laughs. What do you hope audiences get with Werewolves Within?
Well, I hope that audiences will kind of watch this movie and kind of, you know, kind of follow along with the journey of it, and have laughs and scares, and sort of like see like some of the social political commentary undertone and social environmental undertones, and sort of like messaging in there. I hope that comes through in a non-overhanded way that doesn't overtake the story, but sort of like enhances it. And I think this movie will kind of, I hope this movie will make its way into like the lexicon or the pantheon of, you know, horror movies and sort of whodunit movies, like, you know, Knives Out, Clue, Hot Fuzz, Fargo. I think this is like kind of a companion to those movies. So I hope it becomes like, you know, you never want to say, I hope it becomes a cult classic, but I really think if I was a kid, I would watch this movie 100 times.
Oh, hell yeah. I'm going to watch it 100 times. Dude, you're awesome. I love talking to you, dude.
Oh, thanks.
Seriously. I'm going to hit you up on Twitter. Look for the review, the interview. You're great, man. The movie's great. Go see this movie. That's all I have to say.
Awesome. Thanks, dude. I really appreciate it.
Cheers, Sam. Michael and Michaela, I got to tell you, I watched this movie and wow, what joy it brought me. What absolute joy. I'm a huge werewolf movie fan, and how did you both get involved? Michaela, I'm looking at you on screen, so let's start with you.
Okay, Josh Ruben, our director, asked me to do it. From the little I knew of Josh at that time, I'd seen his film Scare Me, which I thought was excellent. Mm-hmm. And he is one of the funniest guys. He is not just so funny. He is such a lover of comedy. He writes comedy. He acts. He made a million shorts. He's just so tuned into that. And I just thought, I'm not a huge horror movie fan. It doesn't really matter if you're going to make a horror movie. It only matters if you trust the guy assembling it. And I just thought I want to go into the woods with whoever he wants to bring there, because I know that they're going to be top notch. I know they're going to be the most fun people I'd ever want to be stuck in the middle of the woods doing a horror movie with.
Oh my god, it sure looked fun. Michael,
So fun.
Yeah. What about you, Michael? How did you get involved with this?
Is similar. I when I was sent the script, I really thought it was so smart and obviously funny, but um, uh, deceptively deep. Like there's a lot of layers to this film, and the two actors who were attached when I was offered it were Michaela and Sam Richardson, and that, along with Josh, was all I needed to know. Like, I mean, I respect and admire Michaela's work and Sam's work so much that I was like, sign me up. And Josh, like what Michaela was saying, if you've ever watched any of his shorts or even like his Instagram videos, he approaches characters with such, I mean, they're ridiculous, but there is like nuance and humanity and generosity in them. And I just knew that he would be such a great director for this script.
Yeah, like he wasn't going to fall for, like his taste wasn't slapstick. You know what I mean? Yeah. His characters that he plays, and when he does his Instagram videos and things, they're just so committed. And what he locks into is such a specificity about that guy, and that's what always makes it so funny. So I knew that's what he kind of celebrates when he likes something. So I thought that's totally my taste. That's my brand too.
Well, yeah, and I agree totally, and especially with with this film, you guys do something I think it's pretty difficult to do. You are able to take a look at things in the political landscape, how we are kind of as a country right now.
Yeah.
And do it in a way that doesn't offend, like at all, like anybody. It's so smart, and that's hard to do. Was that discussed on set at all?
Not explicitly, which is, I think, why it comes off that way. Nothing is like heavy-handed or over the top or on the nose, and nobody gets off scot-free in this movie. Like everyone is indicted on some level. But yeah, I'm glad you felt that as well, because I feel like it really is about this American moment right now. This small town is just a metaphor for the country, and whenever we are looking at each other in this binary sort of black and white, good and bad, like kind of way, and when it's missing nuance, then of course we're going to all be at each other's throats and protecting ourselves, and that's what this little town is doing. But it feels like that's what we're doing right now in this country too, is like, if you don't think like me and you don't love like me and you don't worship like me, and then you're the enemy.
Yeah. Michaela, how did you feel? I got to talk about this character. It's such a great character for you. How did you find her?
Oh, God. I wish I remembered how I found her, because I think she's like a combo of people we all know, right?
Yeah.
And then I am in a knitting club in a very small town, actually.
That's awesome.
And it's mostly because it's the only group of people I can hang out where I'm actually the youngest, and that feels great. But there's a lot of characters, women I absolutely adore. So I think it was sort of like a melding of that.
Nice.
Yeah.
Michael, what about you? I love this guy. I love these characters, all of them. But what about you? Where did you find this guy?
He Josh and I talked about it a little bit. I think it's I know this guy. Like I grew up in Ohio, and I know versions of this guy, but I think there's a version of him in a lot of us. Like I think he's just like his impulses. I think a lot of people have, they just don't act on them as brazenly. But he's living his best Pete Anderton life. He's like having some drinks and hitting on some ladies, and getting by. Yeah. but I wanted him to feel appropriately creepy, but also sort of fun.
Done.
Yeah, you succeeded. And I think that's what makes this film work is that you have these kind of exaggerated versions of real life characters,
Yeah.
but yet they feel so real and genuine. Every single one of you guys. It's such
Oh,
a really lovely ensemble. What was what was that like spending that time? I mean, in that location. I mean, where did you guys actually shoot this?
we were in the Catskills in New York, in the middle of nowhere, about 20 miles from Phoenicia, or 20 miles from the other town that I can't recall right now. Like we were in between, nowhere, and it was this kind of meta thing that was happening because we were in this, hotel, like where that hadn't quite opened yet, and we were the only ones there, and we wondered if we would also get murdered as the actors. And but you add some alcohol to that, and it was just like the dreamiest time. It was sort of exactly what I signed up for, which was, I just want to be locked away with like 15 of the funniest people I've ever met, and with an open bar, and that's what happened.
And,
That's amazing.
and we finished right before everything went into lockdown. Like I think we wrapped on like March 7th, 2020.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
In those weeks after, I just remember thinking, well, if that was my last experience with people, it was a great one.
Yeah.
Like, that's how you want to go out on top,
Right.
drunk.
We couldn't have planned it,
Yeah, you couldn't have planned it better. It was like, okay, goodbye world. I did it. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's surreal.
If we were like 2 days off, we probably couldn't have finished the film.
Yeah.
Oh my God. Oh my, that must be that just thinking about that as a film fan, that's surreal.
Yeah.
Just knowing how life's up. I mean, at the time though, there were reports. Were you guys talking about it and like, oh, what if this happens? Were you thinking about it at all at the end?
Well, you were sick, Michaela.
I was so sick when we started in February. I was really, really sick. I drove myself to urgent care in Woodstock or something, like the nearest town, because I at points I couldn't breathe. And then my husband came and he got really sick. Then Rebecca Henderson got really sick. And then it just sort of stopped there. Nobody else got really sick after that. But I kind of isolated myself while I was sick. In fact, I had to do all the fittings and everything like that when I first got there. And I delayed flying and I delayed a lot of things because I was so ill.
Oh my God.
Yeah. So we were wondering, like, did we have the COVID at that point? Because I flew from LA to New York.
Yeah. I think that's a lot of us were going through that kind of like, oh wait, I was sick in December. I was sick in March.
Yeah.
You wonder. That's I'm glad you're better.
I know, me too. Me too. And if it wasn't COVID, boy, do I feel like a real weenie who can't handle a basic flu.
No, you'd mentioned earlier, and Josh is such a wonderful actor, wonderful talent. What does that? How does that make him a better director? Do you think? Is it just that? It seems like he has such a connection. I saw Scare Me too, and it's such a delight. Mm-hmm. Is it just that connection he has? What is it about him?
He's smart. I mean, he's really smart about comedy. He's really adept about. He knows what he wants. He comes to the table prepared, and he fully trusts that you're going to bring something that he hadn't thought of. And so there's so much, it's so collaborative, for somebody who knows exactly what he wants. Sometimes you can feel a little hemmed in by a director.
Yeah.
The reason he hired this cast was because he's like, no, do your thing. Like, I celebrate your thing. So I want you to do that thing. And also, this is the world we're in. So do whatever you do in this world,
Wow.
And it was nice, like, he took care of everything. We just got to act. He took care of everything else. Like, he knew where he was cutting. He knew what scenes he was getting. He knew how he wanted to block it. And we just did everything else,
How long was the shoot?
5 weeks, something like that. 6
No, I like, was it shorter probably, right? Because we had no money.
That's probably like 20-day shoot or something like that.
Yeah.
Michael, first of all, I do want to mention I'm fans of both of yours. I've seen much of your work, and I really respect the fact that Josh took the time to find the real talent and create this world for you guys. Was there a moment that you guys was there a love improv, or was it kind of stick to the script? Let's start with you, Michael.
There was a good amount of improv. The script is really, really good and really smart. Our screenwriter, Mishna Wolf, really crafted something really elegant and, like we were talking about, layered and complex. But then everyone was very encouraging of improv. Like Michaela was saying, Josh is so prepared, and I think when like preparedness meets opportunity, that's where like magic can happen. Like you do all the homework and you lay the foundation, and then you show up and you're like, okay, what are we gonna do? Like what? And you get all these geniuses together. It would just, these magic little moments would happen. That being said, though, it was incredibly scripted and choreographed. You have these group scenes with like 8 people in a room. It can't just be chaos of people talking over each other.
And one camera for the whole shoot.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Oh my god.
Yeah, it was a lot of really talented people in a room, and a great director, and we just were able to sort of like have the best of both worlds. It's very intimidating for me though, because you have some of these. I mean, Michaela and Sam Richardson and George Basil, who's like a freaking weirdo genius, and Sarah Burns, and the list goes on and on. It's just like a murderer's row of great comedians.
Yeah, no, it's so are you guys fans of the old werewolf films, like the American Werewolf in London and the Howling? I know, Michaela, you're not a horror fan, but those are comedies. Those can be comedies. Are you fans of that?
Go ahead.
I mean, you should ask. This is a question for Michael, because this is really his wheelhouse.
He is not.
Yes.
I am. I grew up watching all kinds of horror movies, from the like really gory and bloody down to the horror comedies and the more sophisticated horror movies, and I loved it all. And grew up in suburban Ohio and kind of gobbled it all up. I was very quickly. I remember when we first got our first VCR. It was like a huge deal, and at the time, I remember VCRs were very expensive, and I thought it was like $100,000. And there was a local electronics store that we bought the VCR from, and when you bought it, you'd get like, I think like 50 free rentals, and they had maybe 100 tapes. So you'd end up renting the same thing like 3 times because there was a limited. But it was like, I swear it was about half horror movies at the store. And so we just watched them all. Movies that I never should have been watching that young.
Yeah, that's what I mean. Like, I think I did watch those movies that young because those were the easiest and most accessible on the VHS, and I think that it just scared the crap out of me so much. But I will say that I just was like, why would I invite this into my head? Because I used to like walking in the woods, not anymore, and I used to like to. A cabin by a lake, not anymore. But I'll say this, I loved shooting this. So I think shooting a horror movie is super fun, and I would happily do that again. I just probably won't watch it.
Well, you guys are amazing. That was such a pleasure. I'm so glad that I got to talk to you guys. So,
yeah, it was so fun.
Thank you.
So nice to meet you.
You guys rock, seriously.
I so appreciate that. That's awesome. That's awesome. Thanks.
Thanks, guys. Thanks, everyone, from IFC.
Cheers.
Thank you.
Bye, guys.
Bye-bye.